And it's okay to feel bad because guess what? You are definitely not alone in that feeling. Like a lot of people are feeling bad. A lot of people are feeling confused, overwhelmed, concerned. And whenever there's a lack of safety, there's a lot of like really highly charged emotions. I think what are some reframes that feel good for me in this moment that I can apply? And where do I still need to sit with it?
We're not great at predicting the future. We're not great at saying this is going to be the jobs of the future. This is going to be the distribution of the workforce. And if you can't see a role right now among the options that you think really lights you up and excites you, it might just be it's only 2 years away.
Hey, ladies, how are you today?
Great. Excited to be
Good.
here.
Very excited. Yeah, very excited.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to have you both here on BlatzChatz today. I'd like to start off with briefly tell me about yourself in case there's anybody out there who doesn't know who you are.
Ruby, do you want to take it away?
Sure. I'm happy to go first. I'm Ruby, and I'm currently building a UX research and strategic design agency in Southeast Asia. So I lived in Singapore for 5.5 years, and in July last year, I moved to Bangkok, Thailand. So I started my company when I lived in Singapore, and I'm keeping it going now. I'm originally from Melbourne, Australia, and my career has had a couple of different seasons to it. I started out working in market research consulting, and then I moved into more traditional management consulting, mainly in the public sector. When I moved to Singapore, I then sort of combined a few things together and became what's called a strategic designer at Boston Consulting Group. So doing human-centered design work inside of a management consulting firm before going in-house as a UX researcher and then finally out on my own. So there's been a few different steps along the way, but currently working for myself, and we have a small team of 3 at my company, Rex, but lots of plans to keep growing.
Nice. That's awesome. How about you, Nikki?
Yeah, I have been in the research field now for about 11 years. I'm a quali, so I love qualitative user research. I got into it in the weird way that everybody gets into it, which is just awkwardly and by chance. But I was at a party in New York City and somebody was like, UX. And I was like, weird. I don't know anything about tech. And then I was a boot camper back when boot camps were cool, when General Assembly was like really cool. I just went from there, learned about research and fell in love and have been bopping around full time in house in consultancy within B2B, B2C, small, large companies. And now, similar to Ruby, I have a consultancy here in Jersey in the Channel Islands. So, not the New Jersey, the original Jersey. And I also do a lot of content coaching on the side of the consultancy work. But it's a very interesting space here in Jersey because it's a stretch for people to know about market research, let alone user research. So, yeah, it's just a different world to live in, but very cool and exciting. And yeah, very excited to be here today.
And the
Great.
cows.
Thank
Oh,
Yeah.
the cows. Yeah.
What?
Jersey cows. I love that. For anybody who is feeling like they don't understand what we're talking about, Jersey cows are really cute. I highly recommend Googling them. Literally, they're the sweetest cows in the world. I will drive by a field of cows and stop my car and they come over to you and I will just pet cows. They're like little grass puppies. I just want them. I want cows. I want chickens too. But yeah, highly recommend Jersey cows and coming to visit because Jersey is the best.
Wow. I did not know about the cows. I'm gonna have to look that up. That's amazing.
Like the secret of Jersey is the cows.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, I know that you both mentioned that you broke out on your own, and I definitely want to break that down a little bit later. But I want to start off with something a little fun or silly. What is something that people just don't know about you? How about Nikki? I'll start with you.
I'm like trying to think now. Because I talk a lot about fiction writing and surfing because I'm like literally obsessed. What is something kind of weird? Um, let's say, oh, how about this? I played saxophone for a really long time when I was growing up, and I was actually quite good at it. And then I abandoned saxophone for piano because of the sole reason that I could more easily play video game songs on a piano than I could on a saxophone. And I think my parents are still disappointed.
These are the great reasons to make decisions in your career slash hobbies. And I'm just so here for it.
Exactly.
I,
Exactly.
I also was obsessed with electrical things. And so they got me an electrical keyboard as an in between for an actual piano. And my poor dad, I took it apart and I couldn't figure out how to put it back together again. So the whole trajectory of my musical career has just been not great.
Was there a particular like video game theme that you really wanted to play?
Any Zelda song, anything from Zelda, anything and everything, because I was like, ocarina, I don't have one of those. I can't do that on the saxophone without it sounding stupid. Piano. And then let's take apart the piano and ruin everything.
I love it.
That is hilarious. How about you, Ruby? What is something that people may not know about you?
I'm gonna go with one of my hobbies is to sew. So I make clothing and quilts as well. I started this about a year after I started like professional full-time work because I felt everything I was doing was so kind of strategic, conceptual, and digital. And I really wanted a hobby that was like real and tactile and used my hands and my brain in a very different way than I was getting experience with in the workplace. So I went and did this very, very short course. You learn how to make one pair of pajama pants. And it was like about, 4 hours of content or something. And everything else I self-taught from mainly just reading sewing patterns, a little bit of YouTube, a little bit of asking people for help. But it's been a really rewarding hobby because you get to make something hopefully beautiful. Although everyone always says, oh, isn't it great? Everything must fit you perfectly. But that's like the hardest, most advanced thing to do is like tailor something to your own body. So I can definitely pick the fabric that I want and the print that I want. But in terms of it fitting perfectly, there's still some way to go. I would love to be able to devote more time to it, but it's definitely something that gets squeezed in among everything else. But it's so wonderful to have something so tactile that gets you kind of out of the digital realm and into your body and into the real world in a different way. So it's a hobby that I love and would definitely recommend.
Oh, I love that. I love that hands-on analog kind of mindset and approach. So, Ruby, does everybody you know have a pair of pajama pants?
I got to say, my husband is the happiest recipient. And I would say I really applied design thinking to the way that I ended up making this garment for him. We had a set of needs that we really thought about, like they should be incredibly easy to wear, really roomy. And that manifested in making something that's also fully reversible. So there's no front, no back, even with pockets. And that's very unusual in a garment. Usually, as soon as pockets are in, it has a front and it has a back. But I made my design, I guess patent pending, for this garment that has like no front, no back, and you can just like, pull it on and it's always going to be the right way around. And this has been through like many, many, many iterations. So he's probably the luckiest recipient from this hobby.
Oh, I love that.
I do too. I love that you have a built-in tester. Recruitment is easy.
Yeah.
Done.
Oh, how cool. Oh my gosh, you should make like Rex pants.
Yeah, for sure. I always think about that. Something I did actually relatively early on in my company was make myself like a t-shirt, like a piece of swag, even when it was just me, because I found it really motivating. It's like, it's real.
Yeah, that
Okay.
makes it real. That's so cool. I love that. I love that. My sewing ability is less than a button going on a shirt, so I'm a little jealous.
Well, never say never. If it's something you want to do, you can always pick it up.
Yeah, that's true. So, ladies, I want to talk about your trade and your love is rooted in user experience research, let's say. And I'd love to know how you found UX research or how UX research found you. Ruby, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So, like I said, my career started in market research consulting, and I got into this partly through my academic background in psychology. So that was my undergrad degree was in psychology. And that is a major that's often favored by these types of organizations. So I was lucky enough to kind of get a job doing that straight out. When I moved into management consulting, I was actually really ready to take a kind of hard 180 in my career. Like I just really wanted to do something really different. And I was sort of happy to leave behind everything customer. And I just wanted to do something really different, learn a really different set of skills. I'd been doing all private sector. I wanted to do all public sector. So I thought I was sort of reorienting things actually. But once I got inside of this consulting firm, it was in the era when human-centered design was really starting to take off. And because I had this customer skill where I could write a really great survey and I could run a qualitative interview, I suddenly started doing a lot more work in design. And that was like a beautiful intersection of some skills I really wanted to learn and some skills that I already had. And then I just started doing more and more projects in the space of design. And in the world of consulting, you become an expert pretty quickly. The pace is incredibly fast. And the fact that you work across so many different industries means you just build up this skill like really, really quickly, as well as the ability to talk about what you're doing and explain that process and communicate it to others, which I think is a distinct but very complementary skill that helps further your career. So I did a lot of that in Australia. And then when I moved to Singapore, I essentially was doing the same kind of thing. So design work inside of a management consulting firm. And to be honest, I think the first time I actually heard that phrase, UX research, was probably in about 2019, which might be really late for some people, but it was when I was job hunting. So I landed in Singapore, no job, no network, nothing, and had to kind of do all of that from scratch. And I had a little kind of portfolio, and someone took a look at it and went, "Oh, I think this is a UX research portfolio." And I was like, what? I was calling myself a service designer, which to be honest wasn't really landing either. So I ended up being called a strategic designer. But those roles I think are also pretty rare. So that was one of my first times I actually heard that kind of terminology. And then, yeah, it was another, like 3 or 4 years before I actually then had that title. So I was doing the work of UX research for years and years and years before I had the title of UX researcher. And I think that's kind of typical of my sort of generation, I guess, of researchers. I think a lot of us had totally different titles, very different educational backgrounds, very different work experience. I think very few of us would have started our degree with the goal to get into research. And I've actually looked at the Google Trend data on this question. And when I started my degree, the Google Trend line is at 0. So there was really no way I could have ever had this as a goal at the start of university because the career didn't exist. And that actually fills me with some level of optimism about the future, thinking like, it's okay if I can't predict where I'm going to end up 3, 5, 10 years from now. That job might not exist yet.
Yeah, that's great. Nikki, do you have a point of view? If you are finding value in today's video, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification so that you don't miss any future content from BlatzChatz. Yeah, that's great. Nikki, do you have a point of view?
Yeah. And I love that optimism about the field, Ruby, that you just ended with, because I think that that's so beautiful and probably resonates with a lot of people who are struggling right now with what is this and what's going to happen. I have my degree in psychology as well. So it's, yeah, fairly popular, it seems. I was going to get my PhD and go one of two routes of becoming a clinical, like a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist, or going into the FBI and like police force as like a criminologist. Those were my two areas that I was interested in. And I finished my master's degree and I was working in a mental hospital with the population that I wanted to work with, which is bipolar, schizophrenia, borderline. I was so young. I was like 21, 22. And I struggled so much with making boundaries, being able to like do the work in a way that helped my patients and was not bad for me and everybody surrounding me. So as I kind of mentioned, I was in this like crux of what do I do? And I heard about UX at a part. Like I literally went to a party and somebody was like UX and I was like, I can't draw a circle, but hey, maybe Sketch. That's back when like Sketch was like newer and cooler. Maybe Sketch can do it for me, but I suck at design and I still suck at design. But we had one day on user research in General Assembly. And that's where I was like, this is it, because this feels like what I was trying to do, but in tech. And so I was in New York City at the time and I applied to a million jobs and eventually landed an internship at a company and started my career within that space. I was very lucky to start at a startup essentially because I feel like I learned so much and trying to navigate through without a manager who knew how to do research really because Googling user research wasn't really a thing back in this was like 2013 or so, 2014. And so I was just like, okay, let's go. Let's do it. And from there, kind of bounced around to in-house roles and consultancy here and there, depending on the grass is always greener, which side I felt like being on at the time. And just kind of like went with it since then. There were times where I was like, screw this. I want to be an interior designer. I hate this. I hate tech. I hate everybody. Let me quit and run away. But it always comes back. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I feel you. The whole, oh, this is all such bullshit. Why won't they listen to me? Why does tech suck?
Yeah. Yeah. But it's nice because I feel like everybody feels like that, not just user researchers. I feel like quite a lot of roles within tech get sick of tech generally, and we're all kind of like, oh, but then like something nice happens and we're like, oh, fine.
I love that Ruby, you mentioned optimism, and Nikki, you kind of started with that. What are you both optimistic about? Because I'll be honest, it's a tough time to be optimistic and positive when you see layoffs and negativity happening around you. What are you optimistic about?
Yeah, I do want to like hold space, I guess, for the pessimism and the frustration and the annoyance and all of that stuff as well. I've always wanted to be someone who's really authentic about the experiences that they're having and when those are not going super well. And I know when I think about the last couple of years for our discipline, it has been really hard. UX research was impacted by the layoffs at a greater proportion than other disciplines. The absolute number of researchers laid off was smaller, but the proportion was higher when you look at those ratios of researchers to designers to engineers. And so that means our profession has been through a kind of massive destabilizing event. Firstly, with the huge influx of folks into the profession, and then with the large influx out. And I think that has created a lot of uncertainty over what even is this role, how does it look in different contexts, and made it really difficult for many people in the discipline. You add on then the frenetic pace of change with tooling and technology in the form of AI. It has been and remains a pretty difficult time to hold your footing. And so I think if you're listening to this and you feel bad, it's really understandable. And I think all three of us have had and will continue to have our moments with that as well. I know for me personally, I was affected by the layoffs. I lost my job, and I feel almost embarrassed to admit this, but I still sometimes feel sad about it, and it's 18 months later. And I feel this pressure to put on a really brave face and be like, I'm over that, and now I'm thriving and everything's great. But yeah, sometimes I think about that and I'm like, man, that sucked. And there's so much pressure, I think, to move forward and get over it and be on to the next thing, that there isn't a lot of space, I think, we make for people to talk about the fact that maybe they are still feeling kind of bad, even if it was 2, 3, 5 years ago. And the effects that this have in terms of how you see your job, how you see the world of work, how you see leadership, how you see growth, how you see stability and what that means. These are all really real things. I haven't answered your question.
I know, but to be fair, I appreciate that. You should acknowledge the negative side of things, because I just tend to be that way anyways. I wish I could be sunny and happy. I'm like the opposite of Nikki, probably. I'm like, oh, God damn it, this sucks. So it's okay to make space for that negativity, because like you said, balancing it and keeping it authentic.
Yeah, I will fully admit that I got laid off from a job that I absolutely loved in 2017, 2018 time. That's what quite a few layoffs happened then, and it was really scary. Actually, I found it significantly harder to get a job in research even after that, during that time period. So it's escalated since then. I'm still sad about that job because my trajectory at that company was so positive, right? And it almost like cuts something off where you're really not expecting. It's trauma, right? So like you're like, here are my expectations, my thoughts, dreams, hopes, and it's kind of just like guillotined there. And it's like really hard to move forward from that. Last year, like 2024 was my absolute worst year. Like I cried a lot. I put on a brave face. I post on LinkedIn about stuff, but last year was the most terrifying year of my consultancy. I feel the impact, and we do have to hold that space because it isn't all bright and shiny and like onwards and upwards, right? It's okay to sit there and be like, oh, shit. Ooh, this is hard. It's okay to experience trauma and sit in it. And it's okay to feel bad because guess what? You are definitely not alone in that feeling. Like a lot of people are feeling bad. A lot of people are feeling confused, overwhelmed, concerned. Like there's a lack of safety. And whenever there's a lack of safety, there's a lot of like really highly charged emotions. I think there is a point in which, okay, I have a lot of really negative, highly charged emotions. What are some reframes that feel good for me in this moment that I can apply? And where do I still need to sit with it?
That's fair.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I think to take that idea of reframing some of the feelings, and to kind of circle back to the original question that you asked around optimism, I think there are a few things that I try and hold on to, or a few things that kind of give me hope or strength through this. The first one is, this community is beautiful. I was just messaging a friend that I met on LinkedIn about how excited I was to come on this podcast with the two of you. And Nikki and I have collaborated in a bunch of different ways since we first met. There are so many folks that I have met only online, and I count them as dear friends now.
Yeah.
And like, you can make those kind of connections, I think, more easily and more readily in UX research than many other professions, because I think we are just the kind of people who are open and empathetic and curious and great listeners and great conversationalists. And so that community gives me hope. I think the second thing is, I want to believe that the companies that will win are the ones that listen to their customers and make human-centered decisions. And I really want to hold on to that belief that it's the companies that are innovating in a way that actually is meeting customer needs that are going to do best. And that in the short term, there might be some momentary gains from changing your organization to be like super lean and removing headcount and things like that. But I want to believe that in the longer term, and I hope that the historical record backs me up here, that it is the companies that are innovating in a human-centered way that are actually going to win. And to do that, you need people that understand customers really well. And then the third thing is what I said earlier, that we can't predict the future. And often I think that means we tend to ruminate on the worst possible outcome rather than the best possible outcome. Like, what if it all works out? What if it all goes well? What if every negative thought that you had, it's the opposite, the flip side, the positive that comes true? And I think sometimes when I'm feeling super negative, I try and challenge myself like that. Like, why can't I ruminate on the positives in the same way that I can in the negatives? And the trends show that, yeah, we're not great at predicting the future. We're not great at saying this is going to be the jobs of the future. This is going to be the distribution of the workforce. And if you can't see a role right now among the options that you think really lights you up and excites you, it might just be, it's only 2 years away.
I love that.
Yeah, that resonates so, so much. Also, was it Julian? Because can we just give Julian a shout out? Julian.
It was Julian. When you messaged me on Slack, I sent him a screenshot and I'm like, Nikki just sent me this.
Who doesn't
Yeah.
love Julian? I mean, come on.
Shout out Julian.
You're so right. This community is filled with empaths who want connection. And so it's so beautiful to bring all those people together because, like, oftentimes it's something that I feel here in Jersey, actually, that I haven't felt anywhere else: competition. So there are like agencies here in Jersey who don't like me just because of the work that I do here, because I've come in and I'm different and I'm scary. But within our UX community, nobody feels that. We're all like, let me help you. Let me help with this, or let me put you in contact with this person, or let me do this for you. And could you do this for me? And it's such a beautiful, like, just like cycle of a community of help, and then also lending help, giving advice, asking for advice. It is such a beautiful thing. And I really encourage, if you're feeling isolated and alone, to try and reach out to people in a really like authentic way. You don't need to ask for anything. You can just say, hey, like you're in a similar like role as me. What do you think of it? How's it going? Because I think that connection is huge and very, very helpful when we're feeling that lack of safety. And another thing, research has been almost defined for us for a really long time. And I think we're actually in a space where we can start to define how research grows and like to continue to evolve the field as a community. And I think that's actually a really exciting place to be in, is okay, how do we see this going? And because way back when we had Sketch and Envision, those were the tool, those or paper or whiteboard. Those were the tools that we had. I remember I pre-Zoom, I used something called Blue Jeans. Oh, Blue Jeans was terrible. I'm so sorry if anybody, I don't even know if the company still exists, but I'm so sorry if you're from Blue Jeans and you're listening to this. It was just like not ideal, right? And now we have this huge disposal of all these different things, which means noise and sifting through. We have a lot of noise, but we also have a lot at our disposal of how we can create our next evolution and say, okay, here's how research can evolve to be helpful to those companies that are important, that will win. So we put our energy towards those companies rather than sitting there slamming our head against a wall saying, please listen to me. There are companies who will listen, who do value this. And it's finding those, helping them evolve, and helping evolve research to be like more inclusive of those companies.
I want to add one last point about something that gives me optimism. And there are so many amazing research founders out there who are really helping to drive this change that you're talking about. I'm thinking about people like yourself, Nikki, people like Emily Anderson, Kaylin Sullivan, Elizabeth Creighton. Shout out to all our women founders who are out here building the agencies that they can see making this change in the industry. And that gives me so much hope and excitement, seeing people shaping that, not just talking about it, but doing it, finding those companies, doing that kind of work. That to me is really exciting and does give me a lot of optimism.
Shout out to you too.
Shout out yourself. That's really great because let's face it, a lot of the UX field is dominated by men who've been in UX for a long time. And those tend to be the ones that get keynote speaking spots and highlights and quoted, right? So to see women actually stepping up, not that they shouldn't have been stepping up, but you know what I mean? Like being in that position is really empowering.
Yeah, I agree with that. It really means something to me when I see people taking that space and just putting their thoughts out there and being a leader, particularly when no one is doing it for them. They're just taking it. I find that incredibly inspiring. At the same time, it is so meaningful to me when other people do take that time and care to share the thoughts and ideas of women and minorities. And my heart does break every time I see one of those lists of like thought leaders, or I see a conference lineup and it's overwhelmingly male. And this still happens where you'll see these kind of celebrations of thought leadership and they'll be like 80, 90% men. And I'm affected by that. If I log on to social media and I see that, like, it really does something to me. And I really wish I was the kind of person, I guess, that was impervious to it, but it matters. If you are the type of person who is in charge of curating any of this, and by this, I even mean if you're just someone who likes to share like articles you've read, the books you're reading, or people that you're following on a platform like Blue Sky or LinkedIn, it really matters that you think about the diversity of the folks whose voices you're elevating.
Yeah, I think that that's super important. And also as a speaker, I've put recently in my speaker rider, my explanation of me as a speaker is I'm not going to speak at your conference if you don't have a diverse panel of speakers. I'm just like not going to do that anymore because it's not fair and it's not okay. Or like the pay to speak, right? So you have to pay for everything to go and speak. That's not inclusive. And so I hope that more people start to push those boundaries so that it's a forcing function, so that there isn't, unfortunately, as much choice, right? But yeah, I love that. I think that's so important.
And I think this also really applies from a global point of view as well. Like when I think about conferences, I always find it um, fascinating is the nicest word I can think of. How many conferences bill themselves as global and have next to no speakers from either the Southern Hemisphere or from Asia. And like just by the numbers, that's absurd. Like the majority of the global population lives in Asia. And if you have like one speaker or no speakers from this continent on your conference lineup and you call yourself a global conference, I'm going to have serious doubts about your commitment to the label you're using to describe yourself. I think there's totally space for conferences who want to be regionally specific. If you want to be like, we're the Australia New Zealand conference and we're talking about Australia New Zealand design, of course, you're going to have a lineup that reflects that. It should still be diverse in terms of cultural groups and genders. But I understand you don't want to necessarily include the entire globe. But if you are someone out there who's running a global conference and is missing the Southern Hemisphere and is missing Asia, I would really encourage you to think twice about the lineup you're putting together.
Yeah, that's really fair. It's kind of like that phrase, world famous hamburgers, when somebody from England ate a burger and now it's world famous. Well, I hear you. As you may know, I was one of the co-founders of UX Research and Strategy, and it was very important for me to bring in speakers to the events that had with a diversity mindset, all kinds of ages and gender and colors and perspectives, right? I was deliberately not selecting some folks because they have the stage, what feels like, all the time.
Age is another fantastic shout out. I think in tech, it can be really brutal to folks, particularly as they age. So I think like making sure you have age diversity is so, so important. And the same about giving folks who are newer in their career a platform and an opportunity, even if they don't have an amazing resume in terms of all these events and conferences that they've done before. Like some of the best talks are going to come from people when it's their very first time. So I love that commitment to all different types of diversity.
Absolutely. And as an old lady, I feel that discrimination sometimes.
I know it's scary. I'm like, not only do I have to worry about wrinkles, but I have to worry about my career. Like, is that a thing?
This is fantastic. I got more to worry about. Yay.
More wrinkles then. So
I'm actually incredibly grim, like the research that exists on this when it comes to women. There is this really upsetting article that was published in The Economist called The Economics of Thinness. And it essentially says that the data shows that it is more rational for women to try to lose weight than it is to get an advanced degree in terms of the impact that it has on their career progression. And if that doesn't break your heart, I don't know what will. And it is so frustrating to me, the amount of extra time and effort and energy that women are expected to put into the way they look and the way they present and the way they show up. And even in little ways, like thinking about this podcast today, I was like, oh man, like I should wash my hair. I need to leave time to put on some makeup. This is just extra kind of overhead that affects women in a greater way than it affects men. And to see the kind of science and the research and the statistics laid out to put it so clearly was just deeply, deeply upsetting to me. And we got to have some change.
yeah. Yeah.
That is shocking.
It's absolutely. I know that article that you're talking about and referencing. It's not a fun read. It's a necessary read. It's not a fun read. And similar to me, I'm going to a in-person workshop in 2 days and my nails are chipped. And I'm like, all right, I can't do my own nails because if I can't draw a circle, there's no way that I'm getting nail polish on my own nails. And so I'm like, all right, well, let's go and spend some money on this and let's put some makeup on. And yeah, it's a different world than I think other genders are potentially used to. That's a generalization because other people within other genders might also feel the same pressure or different pressures. But yeah, it's not a fun one.
Yeah, for sure. I hear you. So I want to switch gears a little bit, ladies. And I want to ask you about, okay, I have an assumption that in the UX field or in UX research, there's a lot of misunderstanding from our stakeholders, from our partners. What would you say is something that you encountered that they just really did not get it when it comes to UX? There was so much good stuff in this interview. I'm going to have to break it into more than one part. So check out the second part of this interview.